management, and we implemented this, the whole thing via entity framework. And all this like delete operation edit is not yet done. So like I'll go on this tech edit and delete today.
Yeah.
But we saw, I think, create new book. Yeah, we saw that where we
Correct.
can
Yeah.
create book 8 and with some serial number. If I miss that out and if I put some author and some publisher, so it's gonna give me some error. We saw that validation because this field is required. So we get back this post and say that you have to enter this serial number, and then we put serial number, so it's gonna be saved, and then and see this record. This is the flow that we check that day, and
Yeah.
I haven't written any kind of stored proc for this. It's just table and entity framework and DB context
Yeah.
floating up. Now let's try to implement, the edit. Uh, we have seen create new, delete. I'll send like leave it for you to try it out, because it'll be almost same as edit, but
Yeah.
we'll definitely look at edit. Before going to edit, you'll see I want to show you details operation also because we want to work on route. So let me just add detail here so that you know what I'm trying to say. And so you can imagine that I have a controller books, so I'll be going into a books folder, and there is an index because I want to add detail as a new action. So I'll just add HTML action
Link.
link where I have to put a name first. And I'll this what I'm about to show you is very, very detailed version of action link and how Razor works, but it's something that we tends to miss it out. So you'll see that actually what I'm defining here, I want to pass a book ID, right? Otherwise, how will I get that detail?
Yeah. Right.
So
Yeah.
I'll say book ID, but what I'm missing here right now is that this is not actually a correct syntax. Even though it's like syntactically correct, Razor will, won't raise any error, but it won't do what I want him to do. Like I want him to pass this ID as a, route. But you'll see that when I create this route, it won't be exactly what I want it to be, because I want something like books, details slash ID. I want this kind of route. Then only it can go inside my as a parameter, as a function inside my, parameter of function. But you'll
Yeah.
see when I, hover on it, you see there's a weird route. You see at the bottom, it's question mark length 5, right?
At the
At,
bottom.
at the bottom, you at the, this side, look at this direction here. You'll see the route is weird. Like if I click on it, you see the route is very weird. It doesn't work.
Length
It
5.
added that ID as a weird length 5. I don't know what this length, how even is calculating that. But what I wanted is I wanted this kind of route. Right now I have implemented, it's not working, but this is the kind of route I want. Then only it can go to my details function as a ID. Now I've written everything correct. So why it's not working? That's like very peculiar and a small detail of Razor. So look at this function carefully. I am passing this route, but if I, remove this, then Razor gives me this thing, right? So so now what it says that you either put a link text, action name, route of values, and HTML attributes. That's like one function overloading. Clearly, I'm not using this one, right? Because I'm passing a link text, I'm passing action name, but I'm also passing a controller name, right? That's not the one I'm using. This is not the one I'm using. This is the one I'm using. Link text, action name, controller name, route values, then object HTML attributes. So if I don't pass this one, then what happens is this function becomes this. You know what I'm trying to say? Because
Yeah.
if we just pass 4 parameters, then this function becomes this.
Mm.
That means that route value will become a book. That's why the length was 5. Because they see the
Uh,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
mm, mm,
And HTML attributes become that ID that I sent.
mm,
So in that case, it must have added an ID on my detail.
mm.
So the whole
Yeah.
thing is breaking because I have used the wrong function.
Mm,
So that's like a constraint that it's just basic function overloading concept, right? It's just
mm,
function overloading, but you have to very, understandable in the sense that you need to realize which function you're using.
mm.
Otherwise, it's gonna pass weird values in your action link. So what I
Correct.
want to use, I want to have a controller. That means I want to use this one. In that case, I can put a route values. That's correct. So that was previously I was doing right.
Mm.
So id is equal to book dot book id. But I can't leave function like this.
Mm.
it'll be just 4 parameters, it'll be wrong. I have to put this part important, like it's very important for me to put this part. Even if I
Uh,
just want to pass it blank, I can just
mm,
say new and blank.
mm,
But I have to do something about this fifth parameter. Otherwise, this will never be considered as a route. And that
mm,
function, see how function overloading works with, we have a same function name, but different parameters, right?
mm,
If I want to call that function with that parameter, then I have to pass all those parameters.
mm,
Otherwise, it will call a different function with a different parameter values, and everything will be, working in a very different way.
yeah.
So that's
Mm,
very important. If you don't want to use this one, like if you want to
mm,
just for route, you have to remove the controller name then, and it can still
mm,
work because I'm inside a books controller index, so it will always go back to books controller.
mm,
Even if I don't pass controller, I can still work around it.
mm,
But if I want to pass controller, then this thing will definitely break.
mm.
That's like the syntax, the function overloading concept. And it's very
Okay.
and it becomes important as soon as you see I put comma after this, you'll see that this is this function now.
Mm,
So that means HTML attributes needs to be passed. Even if I want to pass, I can pass it blank. But
mm,
something needs to be there for that parameter.
mm,
Otherwise, it's gonna go to this function. And this function really makes sense. It will pass
mm,
books as a
mm,
route value and HTML attributes as ID.
mm.
And it'll break.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm,
So
correct. Yeah.
similarly for this, I'll pass new. And similarly for this, I'll pass new. Because I want to have this books controller as a parameter. Then I have to like either pass, I can do also this, like I can put at the rate class here. That's what HTML attributes are,
Mm,
where I can put classes on, tags. But I want to put any kind of class, so I'll
mm,
just leave it blank.
mm. So
Now my red,
if you want to pass any class, you can be put that way also. If
yeah,
you
yeah,
like.
this is
Mm,
HTML attributes that only. So
mm,
every tag of HTML we can put attributes on it. So
mm,
so that's what this parameter is, HTML attributes. So I can just say at the rate class, and I can make this, a button primary. This is a kind of class which is given by Bootstrap, right?
mm,
If I use this one, then it's gonna create a button details. You'll see. That's a way of adding because
mm,
HTML action link is a C sharp function, right? It's not
mm,
it's vanilla HTML. So this is gonna do exactly
mm.
same the way I was doing here. I can add a class like this
Okay.
on a
Mm,
tag. So this is basically me saying that just add a class on my tag. You see
mm,
now it's the button.
mm,
Because what I've done is if you go to inspect of this, you'll
mm,
see I've added a button primary class. So you see the class is button primary.
mm, mm, mm.
That's what HTML attributes are. We can add classes, we can add multiple things on an HTML tag. But
Oh.
the thing to note here is now the route is correct. Look at the route. It's detail one now. You see at the bottom.
Mm.
Look at it
Yeah.
here. So all the routes are correct now. Three,
Mm,
4, 5. So they're all passing right IDs
mm,
because I'm using the right function.
mm,
Otherwise, this route would have been, weird. So that's like thing to watch out, especially when you're working with Razor, because
mm,
how Razor works, it provides a lot of overloads. You see,
mm,
for this special action link, it gives you like so many overloads. So you need to be really careful what you want to use. You see, for this, I have 10 overloads. It's like 10
mm,
possibilities I can put in. So, and in order to choose the right function, you have to pass the right parameter. That's how overloading works.
mm,
That's why you need
mm,
to be very cautious which function you're using.
mm. If you give it wrong here, it won't redirect it to the correct.
Yeah, it won't
Mm,
get that one, and the worst part is it won't break because
mm.
if I give 4 parameters, it's a valid function,
Ah.
so it won't
Mm,
break, right? And
mm,
that's where the thing you start. It's this is called a kind of logical error.
mm,
This
mm.
is not syntax error. Syntax is correct, but when I
Ah.
go and start running something, I see different kind of outputs. It's
Mm,
not expected what I want. So that's something which
mm,
will happen. And the Razer has done nothing wrong. Razer said that you want to use that one, you need to pass 5 parameters, but I'm passing 4, and that's
mm,
why my mistake at the my like it's my mistake at the coding end.
right, right.
That's the
Mm,
kind of thing which like Razer has. It has lots of overloads. So for even for this, display for all these functions, especially for HTML helpers, they had lots and lots of overloads because there
mm,
are different ways you can use this HTML action link. So you
yeah.
need to be really careful with what function you're using. Otherwise, it won't
Mm,
work the way you want it to work.
mm,
So now we have this detail. So you can imagine that I would create a new detail function inside books controller because that's a route that I have defined.
mm,
So I'll just create public action result, and that's the details. And because I'm passing ID as a route, so because I'm going to need ID book ID, right?
yeah.
Otherwise, how will I get that
Mm,
detail of the book?
mm,
Now it's quite easy to get that book detail because my everything here is DB context. I don't have to worry about creating a manager or calling a stored proc.
Mm.
I'm just pretty sure that my DB context dot books will be filled when this application is running.
Yeah.
That's what we saw
Mm.
in the previous, part of entity framework. That
Mm.
means DB dot books will have all the books. I just know that. That's how entity
Mm.
framework works.
Mm.
Now there's a function inside this which is called find, and in the find you can pass the primary key.
Mm.
So because I know my book ID is a primary key, so I can just pass ID.
Mm.
So that way it's gonna create a where clause for me inside that particular, it's
Mm.
gonna fetch all those books. It's gonna create some kind of query, and
Mm.
it will match to my primary key and get that ID out. So
Mm.
see the find function as I hover on it, you'll see the output is book. Look at this part.
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
So it takes key values, but it gives me back the book. So that's
Mm.
perfectly what I want. I want one book object.
Yes.
So
Mm.
when I find it, so that means
Mm.
I'm gonna get a book,
Yeah.
and that's what I want. I want to get
Mm.
a book. It's as
Mm.
easy. The
Mm.
problem with this that we are right now missing it out is just to make function more secure. I can just check if ID
Mm.
is null.
Mm.
Now see, there's a difference. Will
Def-
ID will ever be null? What do you think?
you, you should make a default or first, no?
Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to say is this
Mm.
ID will never be null
Mm.
because I haven't made it nullable. Now it's nullable. What I'm
Ah.
what I'm
Mm.
trying to say is this route will never hit if I don't pass ID.
Mm.
Now if I make it like this, then this route is hittable. I
Ah.
can hit this route without even passing the ID.
Mm. That means it can be nullable.
It can be nullable. Yeah, that's
Mm.
how you define a nullable type.
Mm. Mm.
So if I put a question mark, that means it's nullable now. That means this
Mm.
ID can be null. But obviously I don't want this ID to be null.
Mm.
In that case, I'll handle that. Whenever somebody passed hit this route without any ID, I'll say HTTP. There are multiple ways, but generally people provide
Mm.
HTTP result codes outside. And I'll say HTTP status code dot bad request. That what you're trying to do is a bad
Mm.
request.
Mm.
I could also say internal server error, lots of things, but bad request is the decent way to show that what you are trying to access is wrong.
Mm.
You have to
Mm.
put some kind of ID.
Mm.
So now I have a book object, so I can just put a like pass a return view and pass this book. So what I'm trying to do is I'm creating a strongly typed view,
Mm.
right? I can just pass the object, get back the view, and it'll run perfectly. Now
Mm.
let's go inside this book
So
and
one more thing, if you wanted and not sure about whether it's a return string is a null or not, always go with the question mark, correct? With the type, the question mark.
yeah, if you're not if you see if I make it like this, then my route is secure. I don't need to
Mm.
do this, right?
Mm.
Because see, that's what the warning is. The ID can never be null.
Mm. Mm.
Why
Mm.
are you
Yeah.
even comparing that?
Mm.
And as soon as I make it a nullable type, I am allowing the route to have a blank
Mm.
ID.
Mm.
So it's up to your preference whether you want to make your function that much, flexible that it can allow, but then gives a error,
Mm.
or
Mm. Yeah.
either it never allows.
Mm. Mm.
So both way it can work. So right now I'm just
Yes.
showing you if what if I've allowed a blank ID, like null ID. In that
Mm.
case, you have to somehow handle it because if the ID is null, then there will be no
Mm.
odd,
Mm. Correct.
right?
Yeah. Mm.
Now
Mm.
there's one more scenario. It can happen that somebody pass an ID of 20 and it's not present in the book. That's
Mm.
also a problem, right?
Yeah.
So in
Mm.
that case, the find will return a book object, but that'll be null.
Mm.
It won't
Correct.
give me a correct book object. So I have to also check that.
Mm.
So these are like the kind of thing that makes application more, more and that like more non-breakable,
Mm.
more stable. But
Mm.
that's how you understand the stability. You need to catch all those cases
Mm.
that you can miss out. So it's a
Mm.
possibility that this find might return null because ID is weird. In
Mm.
that case, I can return new HTTP again. I can inform the guy who's
Mm.
sending this dot that this is not found.
Mm. Not found.
What you're trying to say is this is basically 404.
Mm.
You see
Mm.
the status code is 404. These are all HTTP codes. That's how we
Yes.
work in the web application. We go to server,
Ah.
we perform some operation, and if server is able to do it, it gives
Mm.
back a 200.
Mm.
Otherwise, it gives me 404, 4101, different kind of status code to inform me that something wrong is going on.
Mm.
So right now I'm passing a 404 because this is not found. And if
Mm.
everything works correctly, then I can just pass the view.
Yeah.
So now
Mm.
if I'm passing a view, I'm not passing the view name. That means my action and view name has to be exactly same because that's convention.
Mm.
So I'll just create a new view. and I'll call this view details.
Indeed.
I can use scaffolding right now, but
Mm.
I'm not using because I want you to see how I write code.
Mm.
As soon as I go to customer management, you'll see I won't even write this whole part. I'll just use scaffolding.
Mm.
Right now I'm just trying to like so that you know what I'm trying to do. So
Mm.
I'll create an empty, but I will use a model class. So that's helpful because I know
Oh.
my view is a strongly typed.
Mm. Mm.
So I can just add that model reference by default. Nobody like writes it. Everybody uses
Mm.
Visual Studio.
Mm.
So I know it's gonna be of book type because
Mhm.
I'll get a book object and I can just do this and I want a layout view. Yes, but I don't want to create a partial view and just I put an add. So what this is gonna do is it's gonna add that reference by default of this
Mm.
model.
Model.
So that's
Yeah.
helpful because I don't have to because if you remember in the Razor syntax you don't see IntelliSense much.
Mm. Yeah.
It does not helpful. So getting
Mm.
this model is little bit, I have to go to this class, copy the whole namespace. So it's
Mm.
better if I put it like this.
Mm.
Now my reference is correct.
Yeah.
Now I know that it's gonna come like a book object. So all I have to do is just put dot 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 and get that
Mm.
thing out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the one way to do is to use a DDDL kind of thing. So let's see if Bootstrap support that. Bootstrap DDDL. So DDDL is the way to put something like this. Let's say where is DDDL? Yeah, so this is the way by which you show detailed description of list. That's DDDL. So we have divs, we have HTML tables. Now, if you want to some kind of description, that's what I want. So I can use DL, DTD, DD format.
Okay. Mm.
That's it's just HTML, so it's a way you can show. So this is the kind of way the name here,
Mm.
the description here. It's like a description list.
Ah.
So that's DL, DTDD.
Oh,
So I
okay.
can just
Mm.
create this structure.
Mm.
What I'll say is DL class. I'll say row because I don't remember stuff. So
Mm.
because nobody is able to
Mm.
remember the class names, right? So the
Mm.
best way is to go to Bootstrap and see what these classes are these guys are putting on,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
then the DT will be the header. So I'll say HTML dot display
Display.
name for
What is the
because I
difference in name and the display for it?
display for will provide the value of book
Okay.
and display name for will just put that the property
Title. Is it a proper?
property.
Uh,
So basically, if you go to the models, so this is the property name. That's for display
mm.
name for. As soon as I use this, so now display name becomes serial space number.
Mm.
So that
Mm.
helps me to provide a
Oh.
right name. So all
Mm.
this kind of thing can be used if I use
Mm.
display name for.
Mm.
So I'll put display name for, and then I can use just model dot, or I can use
Small. Yeah. Model.
dot. I want to put on title.
Mm.
So display name for takes. You see, it takes. So I'll explain you this kind of thing today.
Mm.
This is all action delegates kind of concept,
Mm.
and it's how. So sometime Razor doesn't provide me that.
Ah.
So now it's working. See, sometimes Razor don't say that, oh, you're writing a wrong thing, but actually it's right because the intelligence becomes weird as you're working C as HTML.
Mm.
But
Mm.
you see, the function that I use is of the type of this, these codes, this less than greater than tag.
Mm.
So I have to put some kind of lambda expression to work
Yeah.
around it. I'll explain you this
Mm.
today, why I
Yeah.
have to go like this.
Mm.
Now DD is the way I put the value. So HTML dot display. This time I'll use display for
Display for.
because I
Mm.
have to put value. So
Now get the value. Okay.
now I want to put value, so I'll use
Mm.
this
Mm.
small model title. Now similarly, I can put multiple
Mm.
DDs. So title, so there'll be you know serial number. Now
Mm.
that's helpful because now if I don't use display that inside my books model, if I don't use this, then it's gonna put just serial number. And now I can decorate stuff like this. So display name for will help me to get this name out.
Ah, the
So that's
heading
how,
that
uh,
the space
yeah,
one.
yeah, space one. That's why
Mm.
display name for is helpful. Otherwise, it's gonna just put back the serial number. So I can, perform, I'll put my own things on top of property. And
Okay.
last is publisher. And that should be good enough because that's ctdd. And because if I pass model, it's gonna work perfectly.
Mm.
So basically now I don't have to take any kind of post back. See, details is just that. I don't have to put any kind of post back in detail. So
Mm.
what I'll do is what the least I can do offer is I can put HTML action link and I'll say back to list.
Mm.
That's the best I can do. You can just click and go back to my list. And now it asks for action name. So see the way that overloading works. As soon as you start
Mm.
writing, it keeps on adding, helping you that now you want an
Mm.
action name.
Mm.
Yes, I
The,
want to do index. Now
mm.
you want to either put a route values or you just skip it out here.
Ah.
If I don't skip it out, so like if I don't skip it out right now, so that means I'll be going back at a books controller index, right? Because I'm inside a details books.
Yeah. Mm.
By default, if I don't pass any controller, it knows that you are inside a details book, so you'll go back to index of books,
Mm.
and that's what I want. So I can just stop here. It's gonna work perfectly.
Mm.
But as soon as I start putting controller books, now I have to choose the correct route value. So that's you see what I'm trying to like point out here.
Mm.
As
Mm.
soon as you
Yeah.
start using different parameters,
Mm.
it's gonna offer you different kind of things.
Mm.
See, right
Mm.
now it's understanding that you have to put HTML attribute, which is wrong. It's
Mm.
actually this.
Mm.
Even intelligence is offering me a wrong suggestion that you have to put attributes now. But,
Mm.
but the thing is, it has to be route values then HTML attributes.
Okay.
So that's what
Mm.
I'm saying. Don't rely 100% on the intelligence, especially in Razor, because Razor has this little bit weird part of intelligence using. So you have
Mm.
to be very careful what you want from the Razor.
Ah.
So I want to use this.
Mm.
That means I want to just put back to list and I
Mm.
want to click go back to index action. Now if control is not defined, whichever controller which is this guy is using, it's gonna go back to that controller. So that means this guy is on see it's on the books folder, right?
Mm.
So it knows that I have to go to books controller and we follow convention exact same. We know we have created the way like this, like we know the name of controller is gonna match the folder.
Yeah.
So that's how
Mm.
the convention works. So
Mm.
that means it knows where it has to go back. So that's a detail operation. And as soon as I click, it should work now because I've handled everything.
Mm.
So like when I'm coding, I am making sure that the whole flow is maintained.
Ah.
See, first I create a function, first then I create an action. First I connected an action, then I created an action, then I created a view. As soon as I
Mm.
have completed whole with an enum, it's gonna work now.
Mm.
That's like a
Mm.
good approach to code, especially in MVC. You create the connection first, or
Mm.
then you create the action, what's gonna happen, and that's you're gonna create a view that what's gonna come out, and that's it.
First is the, can you repeat the flow one more
Yeah,
time?
so first thing I've created this connection, right? If you remember, I created this button of details,
Yeah.
right? That's the first connection that I want to have some kind of action link.
Mm.
But as soon as I created this, that means somebody can click on it. That means I have to have a controller, a
Mm.
route.
Mm.
So
Mm.
that in that case I created that function. When I create a function, I realized that I have to give a view now.
Ah.
Then I start creating a view. As soon as I
View.
create a view, the whole flow is complete, right?
Mm.
From
Mm.
a
Mm.
connection, I've got to the view. So my whole
Mm.
cycle is complete.
Mm.
So that's a good way to code. Like you start with connection, then go to controller function, then you go to view. And
Mm.
that's why I explained you the life cycle at the very beginning.
Mm. Mm.
You remember life cycle? It's how it
Yeah.
works. It goes to
Yeah.
routing, then
Mm.
controller, then view. And that's
Mm.
exactly what I'm doing. I first manage routing, then I
Mm.
create controller, then I create a view.
Mm. Mm.
So now
Yeah.
if I click on it, so it goes to that. See, now it's created that
Mm.
DDDL list. And you can
Yeah.
see that the serial number is with space. That means that the display name for is working.
Mm.
Otherwise, serial number would have been like serial without space number.
Correct. Yeah.
And
Mm.
this function now knows where to go. As soon as I click back, it comes back to the book because
Mm.
I have not defined controller, so it's using the default controller as a way to go back.
Mm. Correct. Yeah.
So that's like
Mm.
the thing about HTML action link, and especially all those HTML helpers. They have
Mm.
this amazing, like very tough, or you can say complicated overloading.
Mm.
You have to very precise as to what you want to use.
Mm.
So that means we have done the detail part, and I want to show you that what if I pass a rep bad 20. So this gives me 404.
Mm.
This is what I handled, right?
It's,
Otherwise the code will.
yeah,
And what if I don't pass any ID at all? Bad request.
bad request. Mm,
This is how errors are shown to users. Like this is not,
mm,
there's nothing wrong about it. It's
mm,
just you, somebody like me as a user is poking around in my application right now.
mm,
He's not using my application, he's poking around using URL. So I need to stop those pokers who are going to, use or try to go inside my application using weird numbers.
mm,
So that's what it's for. So it won't hamper any UI experience because
mm,
a user who just want to use my application won't like use do this kind of things. He always click click click. But what if
mm.
somebody wants to play around? So then that case I have to stop those people. And that's what I'm doing right now,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And whenever
Mm,
this request is fired, I'll show you that server gives a 200 response back. So if I just clear everything, the network also, and if I run this, you see this request got a 200 status back.
mm, mm.
That's for the server to realize everything runs fine. And then in the response, you can see I've got the whole HTML, which is what exactly the view returns. This whole HTML is given back
Mm,
to the browser for it so that it can render it.
mm,
And I already told you that we're going to use this network like this, especially a lot in SPA.
mm.
So there's something you can always click and inspect and see what's happening. You can always keep it open and you can just play around the application. See, every time I click something fires because that's how the request response cycle work.
Yeah.
And now
Mm,
when I click on create new book, the create fired. But see,
mm.
every time I'm clicking on it, it's like the whole thing is cleaned and restarted again, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's a multi-page application.
Mm,
Because
mm,
every time I click, it it goes back, gives me back a whole new HTML again.
mm,
So it's not using a single page.
mm,
Every time I click, I got a new page. So everything is like restarted again. I already told you that look at this, it's kind of a reload. If
mm.
I click on it, see it's reloaded, application reloaded.
Yeah.
So that's
Mm,
the sign of using a multi-page application.
mm,
In those applications, I have to give back whole HTML again. So that's why when I use detail, you look at this, look what I got. Got back the whole HTML from
yeah.
HTML tag,
Mm, mm,
starting to HTML tag end.
mm,
But if I have been using a single page application, then I'll be just returning this part from server.
mm, mm.
So you will never see application getting reloaded unless I
Reload.
want it to.
Mm,
So those are asynchronous calls. I go back to server, just get the part of it and paste it on UI. So
mm,
browser will never like think like that, that
mm,
oh I have to reload my page.
mm,
So that's because that thing is not straightforward supported by HTML. We have to use JavaScript.
mm,
That's where the JavaScript enters because that's the thing that helps you to do those kinds of asynchronous calls.
mm,
And we'll see that. But what I'm trying to show you here, every time I click, you see a whole HTML is written back because that's what I did. Inside my view, remember, I created this with a layout.
mm,
So this guy, even if this guy is just like this, it has its corresponding, shared layout with HTML.
mm.
It always gives me back with that layout.
Yeah.
So that's like a page. So every
Mm,
HTML works as a new page,
mm.
right? Now let's
Yeah.
quickly. So we like I. That's what I wanted to emphasize on routing object values. This is like really
Mm,
important action
mm,
link thing. Now let's do the update operation and see. I haven't yet written any kind of stored proc, and I won't write it through this whole application.
mm.
So now next thing to do is to like fix or edit part. So now we have already fixed the route. So if you remember, I'll go like that only. I'll look at the route first.
Mm,
So I'll go to index. I'll see okay the edit route is set. I is
mm,
passing me the ID and it's correct because I've fixed that new thing.
mm, mm,
That's fine. So that means I can go back to books controller and I have to create that action. I have to handle it. So as first because as soon as user click, it's gonna give me back a get request, right? That's like
yeah.
the first
Mm,
thing. And I'm gonna get back an ID because I'm passing it. I'm making it a name like edit. That's like the first handling.
so
Now
you need to give HTTP get here.
you can, but by
Uh,
default it's HTTP get only. You can.
you, yeah, we don't need to give a by, but to take it by default
It'll
also.
take it by default also. Yeah, by
Oh.
default if you don't put it on it, you can. It's by default get.
Mm,
But
mm.
but if you want to make it emphasizely like post thing, you have to mention it.
Uh-huh.
So
Mm,
by default it's get. You all see the request. You see the create one.
mm,
This one is a get by default, but this is a
mm,
post now,
mm, mm,
right?
mm. Yeah.
So now the edit part again has to work in the same way. So when I'm doing an edit, I have to give back, like I have to find that ID and I have to give back to my edit HTML, except now it won't give me, it won't show render a description list. It has to create text box for it so that the user can, type something about it. So that means I have to still do the same part. So I can do till here it's exactly same. I can make it nullable. If book is not found, then how will I edit it? Obviously, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That,
yeah.
that's important check. Once I do it, I can just pass inside my view. And let's call it like pass this whole book, right? Now I'll use scaffolding to create a view now. You'll see how scaffolding is such a nice thing to do. So when I'm creating a view, I'll call it edit because that's what exactly the name should be. It's edit, so I'll create an edit. And this time I'll create an edit view. You see the template is there for edit.
Yeah.
So I can just use a template. It asks me which class, like which model you're binding it on. I'll say it's a book model. And I can even say it's a data context class, but I don't want to create it right now because you'll see that it'll be too easy then. Everything will be too easy. Let's not make it that easy. So I want a layout view because it's a new page. Otherwise, I would have created a partial view, but it's not. It's a no new page altogether. So I want a whole layout back, and that's it. If I just put an add it, like add, it's gonna create that see edit view by filling everything because it knows which model you're talking about. It knows you have to edit something, and it just renders everything:
Yeah.
title, serial, author, publisher with their corresponding validation messages. If I support a required field, if I don't support a required field, depending upon that. So that, and see, I would have used the begin form, right? That's how I would have done the edit thing. So I begin the form. There's extra thing as anti-forgery token. This is especially for hackers, so that they don't pass any malicious content. Because see, if there's a text box inside like Chrome, I can put anything there, even code. I can put my script code there. I can put weird characters there. So this token basically handles all that. So now you just start typing weird thing and put a submit. I gives back everything back that this is not a accepted output input. That's a way of handling that. And then I have validation summary. And the one thing to watch out here was for HTML hidden for. So I'll show you exactly why this is important. But like let's now you see that I am creating a hidden for book ID. I'm not creating any view. I'm just saying that this model has a hidden for, and you'll see how it is important. So that's the whole view, and it's just straightforward. Like I put a label for, then I put editor for, label for, editor for. It's the same razor thing, except somebody has written this for me. So I'm like with all those classes filled. So it's gonna create a pretty nice view for me.
Yeah.
So that's like it has a save button. Everything is there, and there's a back to index button. So that means as soon as I put a submit, like I put a click on save button, I have to get back the post, right? It's gonna hit back with the HTTP post. That means I have to handle that. So action result, edit, and it this time will be HTTP post. Now I have to mention it because otherwise it'll break. I have to mention it that this is now an HTTP post, and I'll get because I've rendered this view with a book. I'll get back a book. So that's the advantage of using a strongly typed view. So I will definitely get back a book object. If the system's gonna work like this, gonna fill it my book object. Now because I have to make sure that validation messages are taken care for, so I have to check whether the model state is valid or not.
Model state.
Otherwise, I will put weird result in my database. If it's valid, that's fine. Otherwise, return back the view, the same book. This line will fire back the view, the same view, and this time because it knows that it's HTTP post, so it's gonna render those validation messages for me, so that user don't play around with by passing a blank serial number or something. Now the next thing I have to do is I have to tell entity framework that I've got a new book record. That's like thing because see entity framework we can add new thing in entity framework like that and just to update context or something DB save changes. But this time I'm not adding anything. I'm just making a change. That means
Yeah.
the thing that has to be inside that thing, like whichever inside my whole DB books, there's a all those book record I have to mention that this thing is modified now, so that it can create an update query for me. So how can I do that? Is there's something called db.entry, and it needs an object of entity, and then it can provide me something using that. So what I'll do is this book object is coming, right? So if I put book here dot, then I can mention some kind of state. See, I can mention a state that this book object has its new state now. So if I put a state is equal to entity state dot modified. So what I've done is I've just made that this book object which you already have in your DB, that book is now modified.
Oh, okay.
So that's how I'm telling entity framework that this is a new change now. You see,
Mm. Mm.
that's how I'm telling the whole framework that this is gonna work.
Mm.
I'll just make it more simple because I remember I told you that all this framework I have to I won't even tell like create a single query, right?
Yeah.
So I have to somehow tell the framework that some changes are happening somewhere.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's how it is.
Mm.
And now you will like think that how will this framework know which is the right record? Because I'm just
Uh,
passing an object, right?
yes.
But
Yeah.
but do you remember this object has a key?
Mm.
So it knows that which object you're talking about. So this function, what
Mm.
this function would have done is it would have gone taken this look at this object, get that book ID, compared
Mm.
with its DB set, which
Mm.
set you're talking about, and
Mm.
find out that record for me. Then
Mm.
I can just change that state. So that's like
Mm.
two functions running parallelly here.
Mm.
I'm just setting that whatever this property gives back. So this entry gives me back the DB
Mm.
entity entry, a new
Mm.
object altogether.
Mm.
And then I can change the state. As
Yeah.
soon as I do that, I just do db.save changes, and that's
Mm.
it. Up
Mm.
the record is updated in the inside database.
Mm.
But the thing is, I have to mark. That's important because the whole
Mm.
entity framework works by marking those records. As
Mm.
soon as I mark it, I just save it. So in that case, if this is works, then I can just redirect to my default page. And it's just that I've handled the whole flow now. You see, I have a
Mm.
route, I
Mm.
have a view, I
Mm.
have the save button inside that view, and if someone clicks on it, I have handled the post.
Mm.
So all my edit functionality is up now. And the thing to look out here is this entity state because
Mm.
I won't be writing any query and I have to somehow tell the framework that this record is now changed.
Mm.
So that's the advantage of using a DB set. Otherwise, if this would have been a list, I would
Mm.
never would have done these operations.
Mm.
That's why
Correct. Yeah.
when we create that dal thing, we always wrap it inside the DB set.
Mm.
That's the advantage because then you get all these functionality of telling which record is changed, removing, updating. So you can imagine when I have like created a new record inside books, like when I always did this DB books add this book record which has
Mm.
been added would have the action state of added.
Mm. Mm.
That's how the framework knows, right? If you have
Yeah.
added like 10 records,
Mm.
so it will never create those above 5 again. It has to know that which is those new records. So every time I add this operation, it will create a new record DB set. It will set the entity state to being added.
Mm. Mm.
That's how it can figure out that with these 5 records are new. Then it can create a create query and do something in a database. Because see, even if entity framework is working anyhow the way it's working, it will always create a query, SQL
Mm.
query. Because there's no way you can do something inside a SQL database without actually running a query.
Mm.
So somewhere down the line, somewhere is creating a query for you.
Mm.
So
Mm.
in order to do that, it has to know those which are the new records, which are the old records,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
Now if I do an edit operation, so as soon as I click on it, it will create that view for me. You see, that's a view.
Mm.
So I have passed all the data, so everything is pre-filled. And I have handled the validation message. So if I pass this, it's gonna go back and my model set won't be valid
Mm.
because this is a required field.
See. Yeah.
So this is gonna come back to
Mm.
me again.
Mm.
As soon as I said that A, B, C, D, and I correct the spelling of book,
Mm.
now everything is correct.
Mm.
It will go back, model set is valid now. It will change this entry. So
Mm.
let me see if I can show you. So see, let's stop the thing here and let's try to see in more detail. So now model set is valid, it's gonna come back here. Now you can, what you can do is you can play around at the time. You can, when you're stopping things, you can play around and see some stuff by, going to, I'll show you snippet, quick watch. Yeah, so quick watch. That's the way you can play around at the time things are like at a very stopped state. So what I can do is I can say book. You see the book is coming.
Mm.
I can see the whole book record, what's coming to me when the
Oh.
breakpoint is hidden. So
Uh,
like when breakpoint is already there, you can play around with stuff.
mm.
Just to take a peek look as to what's
Uh,
happening. So this book was coming, so I can just see, oh yeah, everything's coming from UI, right
mm.
state. Now I can check the DB state. So if I get the entry, let's see what this function does. So this is not giving me any kind of result. Some function won't give you everything
Mm.
because that's like the thread is already stopping it or doing something changes. Let's see if I somehow get the state or not. This function is not firing, so we can't really do that. But that's a way of, peeking around
Mm.
when you're actually playing in the, so you can do some kind of coding when you
Mm.
have hit a breakpoint.
Mm.
So to go that is just click on this and do a quick watch to see what's happening. Now, as
Mm.
soon as I do this operation, so what it does is it change that state. So it find that book record, change. So that's the book record, right? It
Mm.
changed its entity state to modified. And as soon as I fire this DB changes, so all those records are now modified. So let's see if, let's change it to test. You see, it's modified now.
Mm. Yeah.
That's how it knows because this is a new entry. I have made entity framework to say that this is a modified record. And as soon
Mm.
as I fire DB changes, there must be some update query happened somewhere,
Mm.
which has
Mm.
done this changes.
Yeah.
So that's how we do edit like update operation entity framework. And then
Mm.
now we have a new record.
Mm.
Similarly, you can think of creating a delete, but this time you can imagine that I wanted to mark anything as modified. I will just go in this DB set and I'll
Mm.
just remove that book,
Mm.
right?
Understood. Yeah.
I could never do an edit operation like that because DB set already had that record. So I have
Mm.
to somehow tell the framework that this is now modified. But if I want to remove something, I can just use dbbooks.remove and I
Mm.
can remove that book
Okay.
and I
Yeah.
do DB changes. That's
Mm.
easy. Edit
Mm.
is a little bit like different
Mm.
because it has this concept of entity state. But
Mm.
you can like understand that as soon as you do a remove or add, there's an entity state for remove.
Remove also is using the same method of create, no? Except that remove will be there instead
Yeah,
of
remove function will be there exactly.
there. Mm.
So,
Mm.
but at the back end, what's happening is it will have that entity state only. See, I have added and deleted states also.
Mm. Mm.
So at the back, it will do that for me because I
Mm.
have getting this function, but there's no such function as edit or
Mm.
update. Framework
Mm.
never provided that, so we have to use this kind of approach. But you can see that if I use db dot books dot, I have a remove.
Mm. Yeah.
So
Mm.
that will, so somebody, you can imagine if somebody have given me like an update, right? If somebody has
Mm.
given me that kind of function, I could have likely used that. But because framework never provided me that kind of function specifically
Mm.
for updating, so I have to use this entity state approach.
Mm.
Otherwise, even for add or even for remove, entity framework does that for me automatically.
Mm.
As you can see, I have this new other entity states also. I have added and deleted also. You see, I have added, I have deleted.
Delete.
So as soon as
Mm.
you add a new record, somebody framework will mark that state to be added. As soon as remove a record, framework will mark that state to be deleted. That's why I
Mm.
say that until unless you do line this fire this line, there will be no change in database.
Mm. Mm.
What entity framework does is it will capture all those operations of yours, keep a
Mm.
track of them.
Mm.
As soon as you fire this line, it will perform all those operations in one go.
Mm. Mm.
So how will the framework know that you're making so many changes? So it has to keep some kind of track on those records. That's why entity states enter
Mm.
to keep the track of all the records,
Yeah.
right?
Mm. Yeah.
So this was our edit operation, update operation.
Mm.
Delete is something you can try.
Yeah.
It's very nice
Mm.
practice if you just try it out.
Mm.
Now let's move to the next part, which is customer management. Oh, I have
Mm.
closed. And this time you see I won't be creating a lot of code.
Mm.
because now you know how to work with customers. So if you want to try, you can create custom management using your you can try it out using Razor
Mm.
and everything. That the way
Mm.
I've done for books.
Mm.
But I'll be using scaffolding now
Okay.
because scaffolding is very fast. So you'll see everything is done for me in
Mm.
one go.
Mm.
So what I'll do is first I'll create the entire flow, and then else you'll see that this the connection is missing because that can't be created by scaffolding.
Mm.
So what I'll say, I want a new controller for customer, a new controller. And now they have something called using entity framework.
Mm.
So if I do this and I put add, it will ask me the model class name, which model class you want. So my model class will be customer now
Mm.
because I want to implement a customer management. And
Yeah.
now it asks for a data context class because it needs to know which is
Mm.
your data context class. Without it, entity framework can't work. So it knows that I have a library DB context somewhere.
Mm.
So I can put that, and it asks for name. So my customers is perfect, and I can just put add. As soon as I put add, everything is created for me.
Mm.
Create, update, delete, read, index, everything is created for me.
Ah.
I need to connect that view.
Mm.
And I will show you that code. It's exactly same what I was writing.
Mm.
Because that's the only way you can deal with entity framework. So look at this customer controller. So I have an index, see exactly db.customers list,
Mm.
the way I was passing.
Yeah.
I have a detail, it is handled the same way that I was handling it.
It
Customer
is.
db.find and
Mm.
finding the customer. The create was again same. The
Mm.
create handling is again same because that's the only way you can do it.
Mm.
You can just add the customer and do a DB changes. The
Mm.
edit is also same. I
Mm.
find that and I give back, and when edit is given back to me, I did the same thing and it is get modified.
Mm.
You see something called bind include. If I don't, it basically
Mm.
what it says that if my customer has like more fields, right now it's four. If I have like
Ah.
7, 8 fields, I want to get
Ah.
only 4 fields inside my function. So I can put
Mm.
a bind. So what this bind does is
Oh.
it just gets back only those 4 fields and provide it in here.
Mm.
So
Oh,
you can
okay,
imagine
okay.
the other 4 or 5 fields will be null.
Ah.
What if I
Mm.
just want to deal with customer ID? Why would I need name, address, contact? So I can
Mm.
just remove that out.
Mm.
That's how binding, controls
Mm.
what's
Mm.
given back
Mm.
to me in the post request.
Mm.
That's
So I can
binding.
specify what are the property I want it
Yeah,
show.
you
Yeah.
want in your customer object. You can specify
Mm.
that
Mm.
because my scaffolding is created for you, so it'll be very accurate. That's
Mm.
how you see all these results. And
Mm.
similarly, you will have deletes. Let's not like look at that right now because
Mm.
you will see the code then and you'll get the understanding. Try to implement on your own
Mm.
and see if you can able to do it.
Mm.
And similarly, you can understand that if you have a customer controller, then I would have a customer folder, right, in the view.
Mm. Mm.
And see all those views are made for me. Create, delete, details, edit, index.
Yeah.
So that's
Mm.
the power of scaffolding.
Mm.
It'll give you a head start, like a very big head start.
Mm.
Now the one thing is missing is I don't have any way to reach customers,
Mm.
right? I don't have any route. I have control, I have views, but my routing is missing. So that's why these three components are very important.
Mm.
Now, routing is not configured. So what I have to do is I have to go to my layout and I have to enable some kind of route to reach here. So this is my top bar that you see. So what I'll do is I'll say customers as a name, and in that I have it's go to index function of my customers
Mm.
controller.
Yes, yes.
So that's the routing that was missing. It can't add that
Mm.
because there's nowhere you want to put that route.
Mm.
But now as soon as I put it, I can just run, and now you'll see on top because I've went through my
Mm.
layout model. That's like a default thing that can handle everything about the application, the default view. And you'll see customers now on top. See the customers is here now. That's what I
Yeah.
added
Mm.
using this.
Mm.
That's the route that was missing. Now if I click on it,
Mm.
it'll go it'll go to entity framework. It'll go to SQL Server, get those records, and render a view for me. That's like an
Mm.
index view, and that's a
Mm.
edit view, that's a detail view, that's a delete view, and that's a create view. So all those CRUD operations are pre-filled for me via scaffolding.
Mm.
I can click on details and see it's handled because I just showed you those, right? I just showed
Yes.
you the routes. Edit is also handled and exactly same the way I was writing it. Create is also handled. And you can imagine that why this is easily possible because entity framework code is exactly same. It's
Mm.
templating,
Yeah.
right? It's exactly
Yeah.
Anybody can write this once code and can use it forever. That's why it's possible. But if you are using my stored proc, it's not possible to create this kind of scaffolding
Uh-huh.
because proc name could be different. It could be anything. There's no
Correct. Yeah.
possibility of creating a template for that. But you can always create a
Mm.
template entity framework because the code is same. It's every
Mm.
time I have to do same operation, I have to write the same line. It's exactly same,
Mm.
right? This is the line.
Mm.
All I have to do is to know which is the model class, and that's what I provide while creating a template. That
Mm.
this is my model class, and that's it. If I know your model class, if I know your data context class, I can create a scaffolding for you.
Mm.
That's what this custom management scaffolding. See, I did that in one step, but I showed you how to create it manually because that's where the understanding is.
Mm.
Once you know, then you know how this custom management is working.
Yeah. Mm.
Now you know why how edit delete operations has been done at the database because I am not creating any kind of stored proc.
Mm.
That was the scaffolding and modeling trick. Now
Mm.
I'll take around 15-20 minutes maybe, but this is a very strong concept I think in C sharp.
Mm. Mm.
Because say for borrowing management we have to deal with link queue.
Ah.
Unless you understand delegates and Lambda expression, link queue will be very difficult to grab.
Mm.
So I'll just go, and you have been seeing these like for a while now. You have been seeing this in razor syntax.
Mm.
You've been seeing this a lot. But now I
Yeah.
want to emphasize on these concepts because those are like really important C sharp.
Mm.
And you'll see when I'm writing it, you'll realize, oh, I was doing that in razor all
Mm.
along.
Yeah.
Well,
Mm.
let's just quickly go through these delegates. So as an example, I'll just use this data initializer and I'll just show you that how delegate starts entering into picture. Now look at this, for each. This for each is perfect, right? I'm going through each
Mm.
list one by one and I'm adding inside my context and my saving changes, right?
Mm.
But there are so many ways I can write this. So one of the way is using a action delegate. So I'll show you. Now, if in my customers, that's a list, right? This
Mm.
list. If I put dot, I have so many operations. I can use for each. Now look at the parameter it takes. It takes
Mm.
action of
Action.
customer action,
Mm.
right? So it's taking
Yeah.
a new kind of thing. It's not an object. It's not a. It's a whole together a new class.
Mm.
So first of all, what is a delegate? In a very easy way, if you want to get it, delegate is nothing but it's a
It's a
function pointer.
function pointer. Yeah. We can
Just
pass
that.
the function, correct?
Yeah, yeah. It's just that. It's
Instead of
just that.
parameter.
Yeah. So
Mm.
it's a way of storing a function inside. Like if I want to call a function, I can connect a function via delegate.
Mm.
So it's just a function pointer. It
Mm.
knows where your function is, knows the reference of that function. It can be used to call your functions.
Yeah.
Now there's three types of delegates that C# provide.
Mm.
So the first one is action delegate.
Mm.
Action delegate is nothing but it's basically used for void functions. The function which are not
Yeah.
returning it.
Not returning. Mm.
So that's what action delegate is used for. So
Mm.
let's create this action delegate which for each one. So you see it takes action, customer and action. It has no returning type. That
Mm.
means what this line says that create an action delegate which takes customer as a parameter.
Mm.
That's what this delegate is saying. So that means let's just create this void function first. So let's say void and I'll say add customer because that's what I'm doing inside my function. I'm adding each
Mm.
customer in my context object. See, that's what I was
Yeah.
doing here.
Mm.
So add customer will have this customer object because that's what I want to add customer. And I'll do nothing, just context dot customers. That's my DB context dot add, and whichever customer you pass, I'll just add it. So that's my add customer. Now see, this has
Mm.
exact same type what the action delegate wants. So if I say action delegate and I want to create a customer, what I mean by this line is I want to create an action delegate which take
Mm.
customer as a parameter.
Mm.
So this action delegate can only have that function pointer which has this kind of syntax. If I add one more parameter, this action delegate won't work.
Okay. Mm.
What I mean by this line is create an action
So
delegate.
when you're giving action customer means the entire customer, not only one.
What I
When
mean is it will take the parameter, one parameter as a customer.
so one
And
record the
this
okay,
this
customer.
this 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 parameter has to be customer. It can't be int. You see, there are multiple
Okay,
ways
yeah.
to set pass parameter, right?
The type should be a customer.
Yeah, type should be a customer. That's what this
Uh,
line means. Now,
mm,
if I create this kind of delegate, so I'll say add customer delegate. Then when I say new action customer, then it asks me give what
mm,
that function you want to make me a
mm,
pointer of. And look at the
mm,
syntax. It should be a void as a
mm,
returning type, but it should take customer as an input.
mm,
So that's what
mm.
this my function was, right? So I'll
Yeah.
say add customer. It won't break. So that's how you define. So this function that add customer delegate is now a pointer of this function. So that
Mm,
means whenever I do this line, so it's gonna go to this action, then it's gonna go back to this function.
yeah.
Now you'll say that why would I need a function pointer to call a function? I can directly just use add customer, right?
Uh,
Why would I use add customer delegate,
mm,
right? But it becomes
mm,
very important when you're using Lambda expressions. So I'll show you. First, I'm trying to
mm,
explain you the verbose statement, but nobody uses
mm,
this.
mm,
Everybody uses Lambda expression to do the same thing now.
mm,
So now if I want to use for each, I can just pass my add customer delegate because it takes a delegate, right? I showed you,
uh, yeah.
and that's it. That's done. So every time
Oh,
for
okay.
each customer, it will go to that delegate, and now delegate
Mm,
is a pointer to this function. It will add that
mm,
line. This line that was
mm,
previously done has been done by
mm,
these action delegates.
mm,
It's exactly same. It just the for each this function takes a delegate, and
mm,
it can all it don't take a function as a way. Always take a delegate. There's a reason for that. It could have
mm,
also asked me to give me a function like this directly, right?
mm, mm,
But it's not asking me that. It wants a delegate. The reason for that,
mm,
that why it wants a
mm,
delegate, is I can convert the statement into an anonymous function.
mm,
So I can write this thing exactly as how. See, that's how you write lambda expression, because you need to understand the concept of in delegate. Then only you can write a lambda expression. So look at
mm,
this. Look at this function. It takes action delegate as customer as an input, right?
yeah. Mm,
And it can give you. You have to do some kind of operation. Then there's nothing is coming out of it.
mm,
So what I'll do is, because I'm writing a lambda expression now. So see how I'm writing the syntax. I know my object will be customer, like property will be customer. So I'll say customer,
mm,
and then I'll use this arrow.
mm,
So what this line mean is, then I write context dot customers dot add this customer. This is exactly this. Look the beauty of lambda expression, that this
mm,
line is going to represent and create an action delegate for me, where this time action delegate is not
mm,
having a function, is it's having an
mm,
anonymous function, a function without any name.
mm.
And the only way you
Correct,
can create
yeah.
a function without any name is using lambda
Mm,
expressions.
mm,
So and look at the syntax. What it does is, as a
mm,
first parameter, I have to define this could be anything, right? This could be cus, this could be cus2, this could be my
mm,
own name.
mm,
So that's why I made it a customer. And the
mm,
arrow will say that this customer will go inside this part, and this whole part is a lambda expression. This whole part is an anonymous function.
mm,
And this part is where I'll use this customer to do something.
mm,
And
mm.
that's just action delegate.
Yeah.
It's
Mm,
exactly what I've written on top. It's exactly this line. Now you can
mm,
understand why in the, in those controllers that we're using, I was going through like this. What it does is just it goes to display for, and it has
mm.
this action delegate. Like
Ah,
I'll show
mhm,
it has this func delegate, but
yeah.
I'll show you what I'm trying to explain is all these expressions doing the same thing. This is an anonymous function,
Mm,
and it's passing this
mm.
fast property to here. I'm not using
Correct,
model
yeah.
item, which is for, like my convenience, but the syntax has to be like that.
Mm,
So that's like how delegate is used with lambda expressions. Now this was the
mm,
action delegate. Now let's look at func delegate.
mm.
Now you can understand that func delegate will be something where function will
Will
return,
return something, yeah.
right? That why
Mm,
the func delegate is there. It will return
mm,
something.
mm,
So now let's see customers. Let's look at some function which works on func delegate.
mm,
Let's look at find. Find is in predicate. Func. we could work on index or something. Just look at the function name which I used because it's conceptually need to understand what I'm trying to say. So okay, so I can mix with that. That's fine. It's not an issue. So what I'll do is like func delegate will have some kind of thing to return for, right? I'll pass something, it will return me back that thing. That's like a func delegate.
Yeah.
So let's say,
ID
oh,
pass.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to create now. So let's say I want to pass an ID of customer and I want to get back the customer, right? So let's first create
Yeah.
that function. So I want to get back the ID, so ID will be int, and I'll say find customer, and it'll take a customer object, right? And what I'll do is I'll just go through that list to find it. So customers dot find, and it takes. Let's not even go via that. Let's make it more, more robust. That as soon as I pass a customer, I have to give back an ID. So it'll be very easy. Just let's give back the ID of same customer. So customer dot customer ID, right? Let's say this function is get customer ID. This is a perfect syntax for a func delegate. It takes some parameter, it gives me back that. So how do you write that delegate? That's func customer. It takes customer as an input and gives me back the output. You see the syntax supports me that. So
Yeah.
that's a simple func delegate, and I'll say get customer ID
ID.
delegate. And this time it's gonna be same thing. I'll write new func, and it'll ask me that. See, look at the parameter it's asking me now. It says that your function should takes customer and gives me back the int. So I can't provide anything here. I have to provide the exact same syntax. So that's customer ID, right?
Yeah.
And I can then use it like the same thing. I can just call get customer ID like this expression, or I can also make it uh, like a Lambda expression. So that's where, I'll show you the predicate delegate. That's a third delegate. So predicate delegate is using func, but like this. It takes a func, it'll take a customer, and it'll give back my bool. So if you have a signature like this, take some parameter and gives back result as a boolean, then it becomes a predicate delegate.
Okay. True or false? It should.
Yeah, true false. It's like a predicate. So you'll see. So for customers, if I want to find that customer using ID, so rather than using this, I'll say find. And see, it's like a predicate. Now, when you see it's a predicate, you don't see it directly that it uses the func delegate as a bool. But you can understand that whenever I'm using a predicate delegate, I have to give some kind of bool expression. So I'll show you that. So if I use find, then I have to give some kind of predicate match. So you can understand that I'll pass a customer. So that's my first thing. So that's my initial property. I have to take customer, and then I have to return something from here. So like previously I was doing nothing, but now because it's a predicate, that means I have to return bool. So what I'll do is I'll say customer dot customer ID. I'll compare it with my you know ID. That's my ID. Int ID is 56. Now see, this is a valid find, and you can understand why this lambda expression is working so well now, because this line is returning a bool. I'm not saying, I'm saying
Equal.
double equal to, right? So
Mm.
what this line says that take each customer, do some predicate, and what's a predicate? It has to return a func of bool. So I can replace this whole function via func delegate also. So I'll just change that, and I'll say this is a bool, and I'll say is customer I ID valid. Let's look at that. And the return I'll do the same thing. Also customer is equal to my ID. I have to put ID here, right? This line will return a bool now, and
Correct.
I can this func with a pool. I need this kind of func right now. And so I need this kind of func. This is now a predicate. This is exactly what a predicate delegate is.
Yeah.
This is what it works. And I can even push like this line and this line is exactly same now, right? So that's where the lambda expression. So you can see nobody really writes delegate like that. Somewhere down the line, you might have to work like a very customized manner. So you might need to write, but we have been using lambda expressions a lot.
Okay.
But now as we go to link you, you'll see that these becomes really important because we have to deal with a lot of delegates now. And that's why the function pointer is very important. Because when I was showing you that this add action customer action delegate, you were like, why would I use a delegate ever, right? I can just pass my own function name. Why would I need a pointer on that? But if you want to work like in a one line in these kind of syntax, like especially lambda expression, you will need a delegate concept. Because how will C# work? Think from a C# perspective, how will they work if they don't know a function pointer? So creating this anonymous function, C# has a function pointer to this function, and that function name is anonymous. It's like it's not known, but that's how C#
Yeah.
works. It's gonna create a function. It's gonna call that for you, and it'll pass this. So see this for each pass custom one by one. This function will pass this custom one by one, goes through the whole list. So in this one line, I have covered this whole operation, like this operation.
Mm. Mm.
Remember this
So that
for each.
means, yeah, we are using the huge quantity of this lambda and lambda expression and delegate in our project. I mean,
Yeah, we have been using a
yeah.
lot. We have been using
Mm.
this lambda expression a while now.
Mm.
Every day I do a for, I'll be using a lambda expression. It's exactly that. You see, I'm taking a model, I'm passing a model to do something here.
Mm.
So what this
Mm.
function does is it asks me that. So look at this. Let's look at this function. You'll see a func delegate which takes a book, gives back a string.
Mm.
It takes a book, gives back a string. This is a string, right?
Yeah.
See, it's a func
Mm.
delegate.
Mm.
Every time you say lambda expression, it's definitely some kind of delegate. Look at this.
Mm.
It takes a func. So the func
Mm.
first parameter is the kind of thing it's gonna take inside. So it's a
Mm.
parameter. So
Mm.
it's of type book and it's
Mm.
giving back the string. So that's why I was passing a model and that's why I was
Mm.
able to use it because this model will be what? Will be a book object,
Mm.
the way the customer was,
Yeah.
right? Similarly, it's
Mm.
go for display for.
Mm.
It takes a func with IEnumerable book and gives back the
Mm.
string. So because it's a for each now, so I can pass it
Mm.
on by one.
Mm. Yeah.
And that it gives me back the string.
Mm.
And that's what I'm giving back.
Mm.
So we have been
Yeah.
using this delegates like every time you see this kind of expression, that means delegate is happening.
Mm.
So the
Mm.
only way you can write it correctly if you know what the delegate is taking,
Mm.
right? If I don't know what
Mm.
delegate is of the type, it's a func, it's a predicate, or it's action, then you can't really write a expression like that.
Mm.
What you can imagine, I can't use this kind of thing
Mm.
if the function delegate, if it's an action delegate, because that takes void,
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
right? It has to be a
Mm.
func delegate. Then only
Mm.
I can return something.
Mm.
So that's
Okay.
something you need to watch out for that
Mm.
how this thing is working. And if it's a
Mm.
predicate, then I have to return some kind of bool. So it'll be like this.
Mm.
Then only it can become predicate. Otherwise, it'll return that value, it will break.